recording for us. We will share this with attendees, and also Killian has said that he's happy to share the pack. So you'll both get the pack as well as a copy of the recording, which goes up onto our YouTube channel. So I'm going to get started. You all know me. I am Mary Beth Hosking. I'm the CEO of Women4STEM. I'm going to share something really quickly because I don't want this to be death by PowerPoint. So please do let me know when that screen comes on. Hopefully you can see that. So You Recruitment and Women4STEM, we proudly present a career support Q&A with the wonderful Killian O'Sullivan. But before we get cracking, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of this land with which we meet. I would also like to pay respects to the elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians who may be present on this webinar. Let me just take you through a little bit about Women4STEM if you don't know much about our organisation. Our organisation started in 2005, and next year is our 20th anniversary, which is going to be bigger and better than any year that we've experienced so far. But we run 5 main programs that support young girls and women throughout their careers in science, technology, engineering and maths, starting off with our Go Girl Go for IT, which is an event that supports grade 5 to year 12 students. We run that every second year at Deakin University. Then we have our Grad Girls program, which focuses on young women who are about to leave their educational studies and move into the workforce. We have our Retained sessions, which are our What's Hot in Tech events and our Importance of Women event. And finally, we have our Mentorship program, which helps women find their feet in their careers and actually accelerate their careers. At the end of this session, there will be a special offer for anyone that has attended this webinar that is not currently a professional member with our organisation. These are some of the great inclusions that you do get if you become a member with Women4STEM, and we have even more opportunities that will be unfolding next year as part of our 20th anniversary. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this evening's webinar. Killian is an active member of the Change Management Institute, who named him as one of their top 3 change management recruiters in Victoria in 2024. Killian O'Sullivan has also launched his own Women in Technology LEAP event series in 2024, which is focused on mentoring female technology leaders across Melbourne to support their journey into the C-suite. This program has been a resounding success to date, with over 150 senior female technology professionals engaging with the program. Having worked closely with several Indigenous corporations in Darwin for 5 years and supporting businesses who have struggled with their gender diversity balance here in Melbourne, Killian is a strong advocate for diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And I am one of those senior executives that is part of the LEAP program and can absolutely attest to how good it is. Welcome, Killian O'Sullivan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mary Beth, and thank you for having me, and welcome everyone, and thank you for jumping on. Pleasure to give my thoughts, and hopefully you can take something away from the webinar this evening. But to Mary Beth's point, I've been doing a lot of work this year in particular, actually, with supporting female technology professionals with their progression in, up the ladder in their career. So for Mary Beth to reach out and ask me to be part of this webinar this evening, I was, of course, honoured and more than happy to help out in any way that I can. And Mary Beth is also a fantastic advocate for female representation in the workplace, and to her point, she's spoken at one of our events and she'll speak at our end of year event in 2 weeks. So I'll jump into it because we've a lot to cover off, so I hope I don't go on for too long. I'll do my best to keep it within within the hour. So I'll just share my screen, maybe Mary Beth, just to double check that everything shares.
Yes,
share is okay when.
absolutely. And just if you have questions while Killian is actually running through, please put those in the chat. And just reiterating, we are recording this session, which will be shared with everybody, and that has shared with us, Killian. And we will also be sharing the pack with attendees. So if you've missed any of this, then just answering that question if you want to know that. And one of the things that Killian and I talked about, which I think is probably present of mind for a lot of you that are on this call, and I know Killian is going to cover it, but what's happening in the market now and what does 2025 look like? And I know, Killian, you'll finish off with that because that's present of mind for a lot of us. But please take it away, Killian. I'm going to stop talking and put myself on mute.
Yeah, perfect. It's shared okay? You can see the screen okay? Yep,
Yes, we
perfect. Okay, so we've got a number of topics that we'll cover off today. So just to run through them very quickly, I'll start by covering off the gender confidence gap because I think it's very important to understand what is the gender confidence gap and why you need to be wary of that when you're on your job search yourself. I'll then talk through the preparation for your job search. Everything you need to be prepared for before you commence the process. We'll talk about compiling your CV, applying for jobs, effectively utilizing AI as a tool for your job search, your brand and brand management, interview preparation, tips and tricks within the interview, and then a couple of useful links. But like Mary Beth has noted, I will be sharing this slide with the team at Women4STEM, and they can share it on to yourselves from there as well if you wanted to look back on any of the points or access any of those useful links. But starting with the gender confidence gap, like I said, I think it's really important to understand what it's all about. So first of all, recognizing the impact of representation. Women are often underrepresented in many industries, which can affect your confidence in applying for roles or picturing yourself in leadership. I'll actually, I'm going to call out Mary Beth. She has worked within oil and gas, within logistics, and within sports betting. So when we talk about underrepresentation in certain industries, she's been there and done it, but risen to the top regardless. And I've dealt with many female leaders that have gone through similar journeys, and it's inspiring to see, but it's also important to understand your value in those industries and the value that you can bring in a what can often be a male-dominated environment. Knowing the confidence gap, this is really important throughout many facets of your job search, but studies will show that women are more hesitant to apply for roles without meeting all criteria. I see this, all the time when I'm speaking to candidates. I might speak to a male who ticks 2 or 3 of 5 essential criteria, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, but I've transferable skills in the rest, so I'm going to apply," and I'm going to tell them why I'm able to, do the requirements that I maybe haven't directly done previously. Whereas a female might say, yeah, I tick 4 out of the 5, but because I don't tick the 5th, I'm not quite right, so I'm just not going to apply. So as a result, you'll have a higher ratio of male applicants because of the confidence gap when it comes to applying. But it also shows up, as the point says, in negotiations, within the interview itself, in self-promotion. Also important to understand psychological safety. Feeling safe and valued is crucial. Lack of support can impact your confidence and the willingness to speak up or showcase your accomplishments. So again, it's just being aware of that when applying and when interviewing for roles. Always challenge your self-doubt. I say this to candidates all the time. It's really important. There's going to be moments to Mary Beth's point, and we'll talk some more on the market later on in the piece, but the market is tough and it's going to be challenging, and you're going to get knockbacks throughout. It's a very competitive marketplace right now, so it's very important to reflect on what has shaped your confidence so far, identify your past experiences and beliefs that are holding you back, and work on reframing them with a growth mindset. Build a support network. And again, like I said before, I've been doing a lot of work on building the support network for female tech individuals throughout the year this year. But from a postgrad level, for those on the call that are postgraduates, I would advise seeking mentorship and guidance from colleagues, or maybe somebody in the industry that you could look up to, communities like Women4STEM, Future Women, She Mentors, connect with supportive professionals. And again, obviously, Mary Beth can point you in the right direction there and provide you with some advice and support, as will the rest of the team at Women4STEM. And obviously, to finish off on this, push past job stereotypes. Certain fields like construction are increasingly welcoming women. It's also important to know that there are quotas that they've got to hit as well when it comes to female representation in the workplace. I wouldn't look at it and say, oh, it's very male dominant. I would say this is an opportunity for you to express yourself in an industry that desperately needs stronger female representation. So always consider roles that might challenge the norms, and remember that you bring a unique perspective into that workplace and that industry. So I wanted to start off just talking about gender confidence gap, just to be wary of those things. It's always important to have all of those thought processes in front of mind when applying, when interviewing for roles. So I'll move on to preparation. Again, a couple of important points. Again, I'll always say it's important to map things out before you ever get going. So first and foremost, know what you want. What are your career goals? What types of roles are you particularly interested in? What industries align or interest you? Think about your skills, your passions, and how well they align with your goals. So obviously that goes hand in hand. Craft some content-rich stories, and I'll talk some more about the STAR interview technique shortly, but by crafting some stories in that style, it will set you up to respond, really effectively at interview. Research the market. There's so many places you can go, and again, I'll touch on this further on down the line at interview as well. But if you're not sure where to go, if you're not sure what interests you, do some research, do some homework on LinkedIn, and I've got some links for LinkedIn channels that you can utilize. Look up the news, pick up the Australian Financial Review, see what's happening where, what industries are hot, what's on the decline. Expand your network, attend career fairs, join your university alumni. And this is one that's often overlooked or not really considered appropriately post-graduation. The university alumni has some fantastic tools and services to support their graduates with securing their first role in the market and taking their first important steps. So always reach out to your university, see what services they can offer, what support they can provide. This isn't a sales plug. I'm just saying it as it is. Connect with recruiters. We do provide a service, whether it's insight into the market or opportunities to send across to you. Obviously, recruiters, our job all day, every day is to be out and about in the market. So we always have a fairly good understanding on what's happening where. So use us as a sounding board. And if we contact you about opportunities, obviously fantastic as well. But definitely make some connections with recruiters. Again, do your research. Depending on the types of work that you're looking for, look into who the specialist recruiters are in that space rather than just, going generic to the first that comes to mind, because there are specialist recruiters in specialist areas. And again, just going back to your research, if you wanted to work at the Department of Health, it's important to maybe understand who they're partnered with, because there's certain recruitment partners within certain businesses. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. Talk to industry experts, find a mentor. Very important to have a mentor, and if whatever way you can reach out to or identify a mentor, and I'm sure there's the likes of Women4STEM again will have some excellent mentors to provide. Prepare your resume and portfolio if relevant. We'll talk about resume preparation in better detail shortly, but portfolio, if you're a software developer, if you're a graphic designer, you'd be amazed how many graphic designers don't have a portfolio to hand when I ask them for them. So always have a portfolio handy, or even a website if you're able to put a quick, cost-effective website together. Create a job application spreadsheet. Again, it's really important to know, because it's power and volume, and it's very easy to forget who you've applied to and when. Always have a spreadsheet handy, always update it as you go. It's important not just to track back on where you've been and who you maybe need to follow up with, but you could get an ad hoc call that you're not prepared for, and they could say it's Stacey from the Department of Health, and if you've the spreadsheet in front of you, maybe you won't offhand remember immediately what role you've applied for, but you can look at it and say, oh yes, that's for the business analyst position I've just applied for. So the spreadsheet is important for several different reasons. And create your Seek profile, and I have a link at the end that will send you to creating your Seek profile. So just some tips on preparation. Just to go into more detail on resume preparation, starting with length, I would say 2 to 4 pages is the sweet spot. I've spoken to many candidates over the years that will send me a 1-pager. I find graphic designers in particular quite enjoy a 1-pager, but it can almost be difficult to put everything in 1 page, and there's so much that you can, even as a postgraduate, there's so much you can include in a resume that should bring it to at least 2 pages. If you're 3 to 5 years in your experience, then maybe a 3rd page, and then 4 pages for 5+. I'll show you some examples of resumes in a bit. Set your voicemail. I've been there many a time over the year, again, when I'm ringing somebody about a role and it goes to voicemail, and I might get WhatsApp or something even a little more inappropriate, but I've heard all kinds, trust me. So please make sure that you have a professional voicemail and a professional email address, because I've seen some interesting email addresses as well. Have an email address even specific for your job search that you can keep neat and tidy and track everything in a concise manner. Format of the resume, always important to be clear and concise, and I'll show you an example in a bit. My recommended font, and there is actually some science behind this, that Arial 10 is the font that can be skimmed through in the quickest, most effective manner. Keywords are key, and I'm talking about search engine optimization here, where if you're applying for a role, I would always recommend to tailor your resume according to the role that you're applying for. And as an example, if you're applying for a business analyst, they need squiz matrix experience or whatever it might be. If you have it, include it. But on the technological side of things as well, and again, I'll get to it in a bit with the example resume I show you. It's always important not to assume that the hiring manager would know that you've used this, that, or the other thing when it comes to software proficiency. Spell it out in the resume, because it might not be the hiring manager. It might be a HR contact that's pressing Control and F on your resume looking for specific keywords. So always ensure that the keywords are on point. Proofread your resume before you finalize it. And then finally, cover letters. Honestly, I go straight to the resume. If I need further clarity, I'll have a look at a cover letter. It really depends on the role that you're applying for. Some people will say that they're great, but if you're writing a cover letter, you just need to make sure that it's not generic, that it's tailored specifically to the role that you're applying for again. And I can show you some tips in a bit on how to do that in a quick, effective manner. But onto the resume sections. Again, fairly straightforward here, but just to clarify, make sure you have your contact details on the top, a hyperlink to your LinkedIn profile in this day and age in particular, very important, a professional summary followed by your education, your key skills, your technical proficiencies, and then your career history, including the date you commenced, the date you finished, your organization name, job title, key responsibilities and achievements. So I've put together a sample CV just to give you a bit of an indication on how a resume should look. Arial 10, neat and tidy. I've put the dividing lines between each section so that you can skim it quickly and effectively. But keep it simple. A nice summary, a nice quick to the point summary on the front, your education details and any further certifications necessary underneath. 5 to maybe 8 of your key skills. Like I was saying, your technical proficiencies, the likes of SQL, Tableau, Power BI, Jira, Python, any of those that you think are worth including, that you've had experience with, make sure to include them. Just going back again, obviously, most of the people on the call are postgraduates. Page 1 here, you're all well able to have a very similar page 1. It's not that you need this massive depth of experience to be able to complete your first page. And then from there, page 2 is 2 previous roles, one being an internship while in the university and the other being a junior business analyst position for 12 months. But just wanted to give you that as an example. And the final point is around key achievements. We get hiring managers the whole time that tell us it's well and good to say, oh, I did this, I did that, but what were the end results? What was the return on investment? What was the turnaround time with the project that they worked on? Was there a percentage increase in customer or client satisfaction? All of those things. But again, I'll share this with you afterwards. You can have a look through the resume in better detail. And if you can get any tips or tricks from it, then great. Onto applying for jobs. So again, primary avenues, obviously Seek. LinkedIn Jobs is getting very popular now as well. There's a lot of added benefits to LinkedIn Jobs. Primarily, you will notice that you can directly contact the hiring manager for many of the jobs, and I'll come to that. I'll come back to that soon. Company websites, recruitment agency websites. So standard enough when it comes to avenues. Like I said earlier, create your Seek profile. I can tell you from the perspective of recruitment agencies and more recently, a lot of internal talent teams, they will have access to what we call backend Seek, where we can keyword search using Boolean search rules. We can specifically look for the candidate that we need for a specific role. So it might be a business analyst that has worked in retail or logistics previously. We can specifically search that. We can search for their salary expectations noted on their Seek profile, their availability, location, all of that stuff. So it's really important to have a very up-to-date and accurate Seek profile, because talent, it's not just about applying on Seek, it's about creating a profile so that we can contact you and so that hiring managers can contact you also. Set up Seek job alerts, and that's again very straightforward, and there's a link in the final page of this on how to do that. Ensure you update your spreadsheet as you go. We've covered off on that. And don't just apply for roles. Always ensure that you're standing out from the pack. So a couple of examples on that. Does the advert note who the role reports into? If so, whether it's their title or specific name, find them on LinkedIn, add them with a note, because I can guarantee you that if you're applying for a business analyst in the current market and it's advertised for over a week, you're one of possibly over 100 applicants. You've got to stand out from the pack. Sometimes the harsh reality is the hiring manager just doesn't have time to review everybody, and they may well give preferential treatment to somebody that's gone the extra mile, whether it's they found them on LinkedIn, they've added them with a note, they've found their email address and they've dropped them a direct email. Do you know somebody in the business who can put in a good word for you or refer you to the hiring manager? Email address we've covered. And then with the LinkedIn Jobs, is the point of contact or the hiring manager noted? If so, connect with them. And you'll see on the next slide an example here, Claudia Fong, who is an ex-colleague of mine actually. Claudia has noted herself as the point of contact for this senior digital analyst role with Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. So you can reach out directly to her. So as you're scrolling the live jobs on LinkedIn, just make sure to check, is the hiring manager noted? If so, just connect in with them. Effectively utilizing AI as a tool. Now, I would say pretty confidently from conversations I've had about AI within the market, with work colleagues, socially, there's a certain stigma associated with AI quite often that you know, it's for lazy people, or it's just gonna you know, write American English, or it'll be OTT, or whatever it might be. There's many ways that you can utilize AI really effectively as a tool on your job search. Some of the examples I've outlined are, you know, obviously resume compilation, alignment between your experience and adverts. I've spoken to many candidates about this over the last 12 months in particular, where going back to cover letters, and I mentioned, you know, cover letter, if you are going to do a cover letter, make sure it's as tailored as possible to the role. One thing that can work really effectively is copy and paste the advert into ChatGPT. Copy and paste your resume into ChatGPT, and quite simply ask it to write a quick cover letter outlining your direct alignment to the role that you're advertising or applying for. If it's cheesy or OTT or whatever you think with certain wording, then amend it. But if you're going to be applying for 10 to 20 roles every day, if you're actively on the market and out of work, I wouldn't recommend spending your time on detailed cover letters that you tailor right start to finish. If AI can help with that, absolutely go for it, and I think you can do a really good job at the same time. Research on the market, again, as an example, if you've had experience at Toll Group and you want to apply for opportunities in logistics, just go on and say, give me an outline of the top 20 logistics and supply chain businesses across Victoria and nationally. Stuff like that. You can also ask it about what's hot in the market at the moment, what's been happening. It's, you know, the longer we have ChatGPT in our lives, the more intelligent it becomes. So absolutely, if you're looking for some understanding on the market, jump on ChatGPT. Obviously, you can Google and everything as well, but just as an added avenue, it can be really effective. Job matching and recommendations, again, it can be really effective for that. Company and role research, interview preparation tailored to the role that you are interviewing for. So quite often I would say to candidates, copy and paste the position description into ChatGPT and just say, what would you anticipate could be questions that they might ask me specific to this role? Obviously, you can read the essential criteria with your own eyes, but there's no harm in just putting it through ChatGPT, see what else it comes up with, and if there is anything else that maybe you've missed. Salary insights and benchmarking. Of course, if you're applying for a role as, and again, I'll use business analyst, simply ask it what's the market paying for a junior business analyst with 2 to 3 years experience in Australia currently within X industry. Very useful for that kind of thing as well. Branding and content advice, tips and tricks, the list goes on. You can just use it for so many different things. So if you're at home and you're actively applying for roles, just have it open as a tab, and if you need it, it's there. That's what I would say. I'm not recommending to solely do everything via ChatGPT. I'm just saying it's a useful tool for you to have as an add-on through the process. Your brand, obviously, you know, your LinkedIn profile is essential you know, nowadays, and it's very important to set up your profile for search engine optimization. If you're actively applying, turn on open to work, and then populate with the roles that you are ideally seeking at the minute. Sell yourself in your description. Keep it concise. You don't want to go on forever, but again, just ensuring your keywords are on point, that you're outlining very clearly where you're at in your journey, why you're looking, what you're looking for, and what your availability is, and finish off with some recommendations on how to contact you or how to reach out. If you feel comfortable providing an email address or a contact number, absolutely go for it. Choose your profile picture carefully. Again, we see all kinds of profiles on LinkedIn, and nights out and you name it. Just be very careful what is included within your profile picture when you're applying for roles. Again, if comfortable and if it's relevant, feel free to post a video bio of yourself. I've seen some excellent video bios, and you can pin them as a feature post to the top of your profile. You can even hyperlink the pin to the post within your resume, so that they get a quick video bio of you, almost like a covering letter in video format. It's a very effective way, if you're comfortable in doing so, very effective way to sell yourself. So again, just another option. Outline your skills, join relevant groups, make connections, and always add with a note, because it'll get lost in translation otherwise. Request recommendations, whether that's from university or from ex-colleagues, or maybe people you studied with if you're fresh out of uni. Anyone that you can think of, just get some recommendations together, and ensure that all other social channels are private. Again, I can guarantee you that there's always an extremely high likelihood, if you're applying for a role, that they're going to look into your other social media channels. Make sure that they're on private. Make sure that the profile pictures are on point and everything else, because we've had hiring managers withdraw offers in the last, I've been doing it 10 or 11 years. I've got multiple stories of hiring managers withdrawing offers because of details that they have uncovered on social media. So please ensure it's clean. There's no, we've had candidates that they've uncovered racist posts or inappropriate content of different kinds. So just make sure that your social channels are private and appropriate as well. Interview preparation. So of course, it goes without saying to study the position description carefully. Make sure to read through it. Don't just skim it, because that's going to be your Bible at interview stage. But not only just study the position description, but always think about what you want to ask, because the hiring manager, they always want to know that you have done your homework, whether that's on the position description or some other stuff that I'll cover off in a bit. But make sure you read it. Make sure you prepare any questions that maybe, if there's not something if there's something you're unsure of, make sure you ask that at interview, because it demonstrates that you've read it thoroughly and that you've pictured the role and you have follow-on queries. Prepare responses in the STAR technique. For those of you that haven't heard of the STAR technique or how it works, STAR stands for situation, task, action, results. I won't go into too much information with you now because I'm conscious of time, but I have provided links at the end of this that covers off exactly how to prepare for the STAR technique. I would say to anyone that are attending an interview, whether they have outlines that the interview is going to be in this STAR technique or not, it's always good to be prepared to respond to any questions in that technique regardless, because it's a very well structured way to respond with proper examples and so on. Research the organization. Again, some avenues to look through. Their website, of course. Within the website, you should have access to their annual report. Very important to read about the business, where they've been, what they've, what's been in the news, and what's been the key focus for them recently, and what their plans are in the years ahead. It's amazing information to be able to equip yourself with when going into interview. And I'll come back to that with questions in a bit. Look up the organization's key values. Most companies that you will interview for, they're very passionate about their values, and to be able to refer to their values in interview can add great value to your profile. In the news, simply Google them and click the news tab, see what is being said about them at the minute. Look up their LinkedIn and their social media channels. Research the interview panel. Have a look on their LinkedIn profiles. I would say always try to find common ground, whether it's a mutual connection, or did you go to the same high school or university? Have you worked in the same organization previously? It's, again, amazing information to be able to reference at the beginning of the interview when you're building the rapport with the interview panel. And prepare 5 questions to ask at the end or during the interview. Questions along the lines of career progression opportunities within the business, team structure, the biggest challenges in the role, and related to your research above. So any information that you uncover on their website, annual report. For example, if you say, I've read in the annual report that you've got plans to increase the headcount of the staff by 15% nationally in 2025. How do you plan on doing that? What sections of the business will be impacted, and would there be any direct effects or impacts to me and my role? And similarly, if they're planning on downsizing, it just demonstrates that you've done your homework. They're not just a number to you, because you'd be amazed how many people go into interview having done little to no research, and the hiring manager are seeing no value in them, regardless of the experience they come with. They're not invested in the business, and if you're not invested in them and what they do and what their values are, they'll lose interest pretty quickly. Obviously, dress appropriately and be on time. So that's interview preparation. In the interview, again, fairly simple points, but don't ever lose sight of the fact that of how important it is to build that rapport. And I know it's daunting. I know interviews are daunting, but just always remind yourself, keep your personality out there, and make sure that you're maintaining that eye contact, you're smiling, you're engaging. Obviously, at the beginning of the interview, like I said, if you've done your research on them and their background, that's a great opportunity to release some of the nerves. If you, for example, say, oh, I see you went to University of Melbourne. I went to University of Melbourne as well. We did a similar course. Did whoever, whatever lecturer it is at the time, did they teach you as well? Whatever opportunity it is to build rapport, just go for it, because just get them talking on a human level, so that once the interview comes, not only are you far more relaxed, but they're a lot more connected with you as well. And it will just change the dynamic significantly throughout the interview. Don't overtalk. And again, in the final link, I've included some details on what's called the traffic light rule. So essentially, in a nutshell, the first 30 seconds are the most important when responding to an interview. If you can keep your response to within 30 seconds, fantastic. If it goes 30 seconds to a minute, work on wrapping it up, and after that they've lost interest. There's more details, like I said, in the final slide, and please don't bring a stopwatch into the interview and say, oh crap, I've gone over 30 seconds, I got to wrap this up. Just maybe practice a bit. If you're looking at the essential criteria, for example, prepare some questions, use ChatGPT if you need to prepare the questions, and just practice with yourself, time yourself, see how you go. Practice in the STAR technique. All of these things, if you can just put a bit of practice in, you'll nail it fairly quickly. STAR technique within the traffic light rule, responding to the essential criteria. If you can do that bit of prep on the responses, you'll be good as gold by the time the interview comes. Eye contact we've covered, but ensure you're not just engaging with the hiring manager or the person leading the questions, because more often than not, you'll find that one particular person in the interview is asking all the questions, and it's very easy to default and look directly at that person only. It's a common mistake, and we hear it all the time when we gather feedback from um, from the hiring managers. We might have a CIO in an interview with the head of talent, for example, and the head of talent might be asking the questions, but the CIO ultimately is going to probably more often than not make the final call. But the person responding responds to the person that's asking the question and ignores the person to the left. It's very important to ensure you're making eye contact with both of them throughout your responses. Another very common error that people make is don't bag out your existing or your previous employers. You might be well within your right to have grievances. Maybe they've done something terrible for you to lose your role, or for you to be about to lose your role, but just be very careful. It's something I would advise you to prepare a response for before the interview. Think strategically about a way that you can make your feedback clear as to why you're looking or why you lost your last role, but relay that information in a professional manner at interview. And then finally, with the close, a couple of things I would just say: ask them, were there any further queries for you that maybe you haven't already covered, because it demonstrates some great confidence for you to ask them if they have any further queries, and they may well have. Always make sure to thank them for their time. Make sure to reiterate your interest and that you're looking forward to feedback in due course. And that's it. And then finally, a couple of useful links. Again, I'll share this slide with Mary Beth and the team, and they'll send it on from there. But we've got an excellent page on our website around career advice, insights, and so on. Take a look. There's some great articles in there for interview prep, and the STAR technique, the traffic light rule, it's all included in that link. Women4STEM, Mary Beth's covered a lot of this earlier, but I've had a look at their programs page quite a bit over the last 12 months, and they've got some excellent programs for career support, resume support, anything that you need as far as mentorship capacity is concerned. They've got some amazing programs, so have a look there. On the AI front, obviously we've covered off on ChatGPT, but there's also a free AI resume creation website. I hear so many times people paying $300-400 for resume experts, and then they send me the CV. And to be frank, you could do better yourself sometimes. Please don't pay $300 or $400 for resume compilation. There's a lot of free services out there. Again, just going back to connecting to recruiters, they're always happy to provide their insight and advice on that front as well. A couple of more links. There's a Seek Career Advice link. The Seek profile we've covered, AFL Careers, LinkedIn Australia blog, and the Australian Government Job Lookout. They all provide some amazing insights on the market, careers, advice, tips and tricks, etc. So I think that covers everything from me. So thank you all for your time, and I'll pass it across for question time.
Wow. I was making notes. I got to say, I learned so much from that. Killian, thank you. If you would like to just stop sharing, then we can see some of the people that are on the webinar. There is a question here. It's a really good question that Emily has put forward, and I want to make sure that, Emily, I think I understand what you've asked here, but could we combine the cover letter with the resume into one PDF, or should we split them out?
Well, that's a good question. I would send them separately, just because I would always say the first 5 seconds of your resume are crucial. And Mary Beth, you've been there hundreds of times reviewing applicants. If you're looking for somebody that needs specific tech proficiency, we know exactly where to go on a resume. When we open a resume, we'll decide, and it sounds brutal, but as a hiring manager, we'll decide within 5 seconds. But if you've got to scroll through a lengthy cover letter to get to where you want to specifically look, whether that's your education, your career experience, your technical proficiency, we want to be able to see that ASAP from a resume. We might actually then afterwards go back as a kind of further further to add further credibility to your profile. We'll then read your cover letter. But when we're skimming multiple applicants at once, I would say keep them separate, because the resume needs to be to the point the moment you enter it. And I've been there with resumes where you're scrolling and scrolling, and it's like a thesis half the time with some of these resumes. So yeah, keep them separate is what I would say.
I am one of the things that you made mention of when we were having the pre-chat before this webinar, Killian, which was really interesting, was you said, you know, you could get 500 applications through for a role. So I think it's really important, and you said that was around that front page, that very first page of resume. You've got to capture someone. You've got enough real estate on that front page to really capture and bring somebody in. So make sure that you're using that space really wisely
Yeah.
without overcrowding it.
Mm.
I did, and there is another one that's come through from Himani. Hang on. Sorry. Firstly, from Victoria from Women4STEM, she's popped in a question. If you lose a role due to redundancy, financial reasons of the organization, what's the best way to represent this on your resume, LinkedIn, and in an interview? Great question. Killian, your thoughts?
Uh, I've a pretty straightforward answer. I would say if it's a redundancy layoff, then just let them know. I mean, ultimately, if you've been made redundant, then there's really nothing you could do about that. It's you're a victim of the market, and you know you'd also hope that maybe the hiring manager might have some empathy or sympathy to your situation as well. So I would just simply say start date to finish date. You can maybe put a little line underneath in italics, just say redundancy layoff. Or you could say, for example, if you're one of 5 to 10 in the team that got laid off, you could say redundancy, one of 5, one of 10 redundancy victims. And if you have further clarity around why, like the team was moved offshore or financial cuts, you can clarify that as well. But if it's a redundancy layoff, I would clarify. I'm just seeing, I was told years ago not to say you were made redundant, but you're wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the role
yeah,
the role was
yeah,
absolutely, Andrea, absolutely. Because it's
absolutely.
not you weren't sacked through misperformance or underperformance or whatever. It's the
Yeah,
organization is right sizing, and so that's what happens.
yeah.
Himani has popped in here. Sometimes the chat GPT will provide very generic and irrelevant responses for interview questions. Would your advice be to look into alternate resources for interview prep and response prep?
Yeah, I mean it's case by case, and just on my point earlier, ChatGPT can whiz out some cheesy OTT elaborate responses sometimes, and maybe it's not as tailored as it can be. It can be great for certain things. It can miss the mark other times. That's why I say have it as a tab, has it as one. If you're preparing for an interview, I would say as many resources that you can access without overcomplicating things, the better. And again, on the UNU website, you'll see we've got a very comprehensive link on the web page that'll bring you to preparing for interview questions. If you can spin it through ChatGPT and get their thoughts, and if it's helpful, great. If it's not, then don't use it as your Bible. There's plenty great resources out there, and I've included a lot of those links in the slide.
We have another question from Marwa, which is, and I think this is so pertinent, and it's so pertinent to our organisation. Any advice for mothers who stop working for a number of years to take care of their children and then want to get back to work? What should they say on or at an interview?
Yeah, we've had this conversation many a time in the series that you've been part of, Mary Beth, and it's
Yeah.
there's no there's no sugarcoating it. It's difficult. It's a very challenging situation for females in the workforce to take time out of work to raise a family and then return to work, and it is difficult. As far as how to reference it, yeah, I mean, you can just I would keep it brief in the resume. You can just have a quick line just saying X date to this date, maternity leave, something very simple. You don't need to explain yourself. They know the situation. There's no sugarcoating it beyond that. If you know, I don't know if that answers the question, but um,
Something that I might want to sort of point out, there are a number of organizations who are doing return to work style programs for women who want to get back into the workforce after taking extended time off to raise family. So
yeah,
that could be another option, as well as when you're looking. I know NAB does this, a number of consulting companies do this. They open up a series of roles, and it's almost, think of it as an internship to sort of get you back into that work readiness space. So that's also an opportunity. But for many of us on here, we've taken that time off, and I think it's that authenticity. Your family is really important. Your work family is just as important, but that being able to, sometimes we have to take, family has to take precedence, and this is what we do. And now we're ready to get back into the workforce. I think
yeah,
be very, very clear cut, simple. Don't need to
yeah.
labor the point. And also, you don't need to be embarrassed by it. Please
Mm,
don't be embarrassed by having your kids and doing those things that you wish to do. And I think that's a lot of the time, it's like, is there a stigma? A lot of organizations these days doing, 12-month maternity with a portion of it paid. A lot of them are also saying, if you go half of that payment, you could do it for 18 months to 2 years. Really avail yourself to those sorts of things in the organization, but don't apologize for being a parent,
yeah.
because
In
men
fact,
men also are taking time off, extended time
yeah.
off, to have, to raise family.
Yeah, and even further to that point, Marybeth, is you've got so many big organizations out there, and it's amazing and fantastic to see that they're providing a lot of incentives, and they're promoting their return to work strategies for mums that have been out of the workforce. So there's actually a
Yeah.
lot of companies out there that are really almost favoring and promoting hiring return to work mums. So embrace it. And to Mary Beth's point, definitely don't shy away from it. It is what
There
it's that's life, and
There are
it's something to be
transferable
proud of.
skills, ladies and gentlemen on here. You raising your kids,
Resilience.
there are transferable skills. You can
Yep.
talk about those. Patience, holy moly, patience, resilience, dealing with the other parents at schools. So
Yep.
there are transferables. There's some more questions here. I'm mindful of that time. So Himani had, if there's a long gap between completing your education, your postgraduate, and finding a job, how do you justify this if you are asked about it in an interview? So how do you justify, hey, I took a gap year, or I did this?
I actually think that's becoming less and less relevant nowadays. If there is a gap, and if you can upskill yourself in between, if you can do additional online certifications or courses, great. And it will almost close the gap, because you'll see it'll almost preempt that question. So say your degree is in 2018 and you're applying for roles in 2024, but you've done courses in 2020, 22, 2023. They're not, it will remove the thought process of why is it been 6 years.
Mm.
You've graduated, but you've continued to upskill since then. So that's definitely a way that you can go about it. But I would say, just as peace of mind, from a hiring manager perspective, the education experience, the date, provided that it's not beyond, you know, 5 years back, it's the weight put on it nowadays is I would say a lot less than it was 10 years ago. So it, you know, but if you can close the gap, like I said, in the meantime, great. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Mary Beth, yourself? From
I do, and I was actually going to, because Prina popped in a thing saying, especially with tech, it's more difficult because things keep changing. Micro credentials, people. Micro credentials is the next big thing. Look into that because you can do a micro credential and it will start to build the gap. It will start doing that, and you'll see those sorts of things available. LinkedIn has a lot of LinkedIn Learning,
Mm,
etc. You can have a look. Microsoft has a lot of stuff online that's micro credentials. Udemy, a lot of those sorts of tools that are out there, those organizations are doing micro credentials. And if you're not sure what they are, research, research. Have a look because and you can do little things that augment your career. And just really, please don't forget your transferable skills. They're really important. If you were part of the Mentor She program, I ran a session around what I call the Joy Matrix, which really does focus on every single role you've ever done and all of your transferable skills because you will forget what they are. So start writing them down. Write them
mm.
down and then think about how you could weave the narrative in your resume and at interview around the transferables.
Yeah.
There is another question here from Kanchan. What are some strategies to break through the experience trap where job postings need experience, but it's challenging to gain the experience without landing a job first? And I'm just going to add to this, Killian. So many times we see hiring managers who put up 5 plus years, 10 plus years. It's an entry level position and they've got 5 plus years or 3 plus years. And yeah, it's entry level. No one's going to come entry level with 3 plus years. So is that just an HR misnomer? We should ignore it? Or, what should we do when in relation to what Kanchan's asking?
Yeah. I mean, going back to your point, Mary Beth, they're always selection criteria can often be a wish list. I mean, again, just going back to the gender confidence gap, if one of the criteria is 3 years experience and it's a relatively junior role, but the rest of the criteria is a degree and it's a tick. If it's, you know, experience working with X, Y, and Z platforms, tick. Experience working in an agile environment, tick. If you're ticking all the rest of the criteria and you're falling shy on the experience level, then don't not apply. I would apply, and I would use again. That's when a cover letter can come in useful because you can
Yeah.
subtly address the the experience that you've had. You don't have to specifically say I haven't done 3 years experience. You can just say over the last 24 months or 12 months or 18 months I've done X, Y, and Z, and that's your opportunity to showcase just how relevant your experience is, whether it's hit the mark for the 3 years or not. It's extremely relevant across 12 to 18. And then you can go on to say, I've done this, and this, with all of the rest of the criteria. And from there, you've nailed 4.5 of the criteria. So you should
Yep.
be a shoo-in for interview at that point.
Absolutely. Now we've one final question here because it's 6:58 and I'm mindful of everyone's time, and it's the witching hour for the young ones who want some dinner or want to go to bed. So, if I'm doing a 3-year bachelor but choose to finish it in 3.5 or 4 years due to loading in my semesters, um, how negatively is this looked upon by recruiters? And I think you said this before, which was around that sort of the gap piece. It's not so much looked on unfavorably, Killian, but your thoughts?
Um, honestly, I would have never, if I see a start date to an end date for a bachelor's degree, I don't really question why it was a certain length. What you could even do to remove any concerns you might have on that is just put the year you graduated,
Yeah,
and just
absolutely. Never put the full duration. No
yeah,
one
yeah,
needs to know that.
exactly. Your graduation year is really all that matters. The year you graduated, the degree, etc. From there, it might have taken you 15 years. They don't need to know that.
No, okay. I'm mindful of the time. Killian, anyone on the webinar that wants to link with you on LinkedIn, are you happy for that?
Of course, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Feel free to share um, my LinkedIn, and yeah, just to reiterate again, the very best to look to everyone. Obviously, there's a lot of I'm sure you're all actively on the lookout for work, and um, just to close off as well, Mary Beth, on your point about the market. There's no point in me beating around the bush. The market's tough at the minute, so go easy on yourself. It's I've you know, I've had one of the quieter 12 months of my time in recruitment over the last, you know, 12 months. So what I would say is I'm having conversations day in, day out, week in, week out with hiring managers. The market's shifting. I think that the new calendar year will be the catalyst we've all been waiting for. It's going to remain quite competitive. So hopefully some of the points that we covered off will help you stand out from the pack, because really it is all about standing out from the pack right now. You don't even need to be the best sometimes. You just need to get in front of the hiring manager and whatever strategy that you can implement. And hopefully some of those tips can help, because they're coming from the perspective of somebody who's had people stand out from the pack as they've applied for roles I've advertised over the years. But yeah, it's a slow moving market, but it's heading in the right direction. So fingers crossed for you all that something lands soon.
All right. So thank you so much, Killian, from You and You Recruitment. Uh, this is another great webinar from Women for STEM. Next year, we have a full slate of webinars coming. And if you are a member, additional things that the membership will provide to you. So we look forward to seeing you on more webinars in 2025 as we do come to a close of the year. I wish all of you a wonderful holiday season. Take care. Be with family, friends, overindulge, but not too much. And thank you all for joining us at Women for STEM. Thank you, Killian.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thanks for having me.